On this Thursday night, the Prime Minister's ambitious plan to build. The major projects he's unveiled.
To realize our country's full potential as an energy superpower.
What did not make the cut and the reaction. The biggest security threats and what's being done to thwart them, we hear from Canada's top spy. A repatriation decades in the making.
They just buried her like that. I remember my mom crying for seemed like forever.
The final journey for a little girl who died at a Canadian residential school. Plus, billboard backlash.
Not a fan.
The ads that are watching you and why privacy experts are worried.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. 6 more projects have been announced that the Prime Minister claims will make Canada stronger and more self-sufficient and will, he says, establish the country as a clean energy superpower. The so-called nation-building projects include an Inuit-owned hydroelectricity project in Nunavut, 3 critical mineral mines in New Brunswick, Quebec and Ontario, in northern BC, a liquefied natural gas facility, and the North Coast transmission line that will tie together a conservation corridor in BC and Yukon. We'll have political reaction with David Akin in a moment, but we begin with Aaron McArthur, who was at today's announcement in Terrace, BC.
Donna, the Prime Minister is framing these projects, the scale of these projects, as a way to move away from being so reliant on the United States and a way for Canada to bolster its economic future. The scope of these projects are potentially worth billions of dollars in direct investment. Silithium, an LNG project owned in part by the Nisga'a Nation, has already cleared many of its regulatory hurdles. The Major Project Office now looking to fast-track the final push to begin exports of LNG from a terminal north of Prince Rupert. A significant component of the Liberal government's plan to build involves clean energy. Mark Carney announcing a $140 million loan to BC Hydro to help push development of a new North Coast transmission line. A line the BC Premier has said is essential to expanding the province's power grid. Also on the table, a hydro project in Iqaluit designed to reduce the community's reliance on diesel generators. 3 mining projects are also on the list: Crawford Nickel in Ontario, a graphite mine in Quebec, and a tungsten mine in New Brunswick. According to the Prime Minister, the potential investment aimed at filling the void left by the U.S. pulling back on its role as a major trade partner.
That's because the world, U.S., is changing rapidly. And so we must change our strategy dramatically. And we're doing that by drawing on our legacy as builders.
This major projects list is evolving. The Prime Minister promising more announcements will be made in the months to come. What is not on this list? Any talk of an oil pipeline from Alberta to tidal waters. Donna?
Okay, Aaron McArthur in Terrace, BC, thanks. The Prime Minister promised his government would build big and build fast, and he set up a major projects office to help do that. The CEO of that office was also in Terrace, BC today. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is with me now. David, the Prime Minister deferred to her at times to answer questions about the point of her office.
That's right, Donna. Her name is Dawn Farrell, and both she and the PM tried to make the case that the Major Projects Office can help the 11 projects now on its docket, even though most of them are already years into the planning and approvals process.
Take the Crawford Nickel Mine just north of Timmins, Ontario. It's new today to this major projects list, and it is more than 3 years already into the regulatory process to develop this site. And the Federal Impact Assessment Agency will not get to its work until March at least. And that assessment will take more than a year. But it's only after all that is done that Canada Nickel can begin to start the long process of applying for the various building and environmental permits that it will need to build a mine it hopes will produce thousands of tons of nickel every day for the next 41 years.
So for projects like Crawford, we're working to come up with processes where we can run all the permitting in parallel so that we're not doing it sequentially. So something that might have taken 5 or 6 more years can now take 2 years.
Another project to this list is an existing graphite mine northeast of Montreal. The proponent here, Nouveau-Monde Graphite, is looking for what amounts to upfront federal commitments to buy its graphite, which it believes will help it find more private sector financing. Its goal is to ramp up production by 2028.
We're moving much faster. We're moving in parallel. There's a window, a single window for the people who are working on these projects to see all of the financing support.
Canada's construction industry is confident the Major Projects Office can get its members to work quickly.
I think the Major Project Office, it's something that we've been asking for years. I mean, centralized, predictable decision-making process, and mostly alignment amongst all the departments.
Now, the Liberals did campaign that they would build big and build fast, and some of these projects are definitely big builds. But now the Major Projects Office has to deliver on that Liberal promise to build fast. Donna?
And David, what's the early reaction from the provinces and from Indigenous and environmental groups?
Well, this new LNG project is certainly drawing a lot of opposition. Some, though not all Indigenous environmental groups, but quite a few are saying that project is, quote, harmful and unnecessary. Some Indigenous groups are already in court trying to block it. Now, the premiers of BC, Ontario, and New Brunswick, probably no surprise, they are welcoming today's developments, though they are very keen to see the work move ahead as rapidly as possible. Donna.
And what about the reaction at the federal level, David?
Well, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre just happened to be in BC as well today, and he does not believe that this Major Projects Office will help.
The problem? Too much bureaucracy. Mark Carney's solution? Add another bureaucracy.
And Poilievre went on to compare Carney to a rooster who thinks that the sun comes up because the rooster crows. No, Poilievre says, the sun was coming up anyway. And that's Poilievre's view of these major projects. He says they were going to proceed with or without Carney's Major Projects Office making them come up. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken in Ottawa, thank you. We don't often hear from the head of Canada's Security Intelligence Service, but today, following what his counterparts in the UK and Australia do, Canada's top spy gave the first of what's expected to be an annual speech outlining the complex threats Canada faces.
Canada's national security environment is more complex and dynamic than at any point in recent memory. Polarization and radicalization are on the rise, and social cohesion is eroding.
Daniel Rogers says a worrying number of young people under the age of 18 are becoming radicalized, and he warns about threats from two countries Canada is trying to build deeper trade ties with, China and India. Gillian Piper reports.
This shooting at Punjabi singer AP Dhillon's BC home last year has been linked to India's Bishnoi gang.
Competition between states is intensifying.
That international intimidation is exactly what the Canadian Security Intelligence Service is trying to combat, listing foreign interference and espionage as top security threats to Canada.
The value of intelligence is at its highest, and our adversaries will be more assertive than ever in trying to obtain it.
Agents of the government of India.
2 years ago, then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused agents of the Indian government of potential involvement in the killing of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar in BC.
It's a great honor to host you.
Despite that, Prime Minister Mark Carney is attempting to rekindle Canada's relationship with India and thaw relations with China in an attempt to pivot away from the United States during the trade war, even though CSIS has also said Beijing spies have tried to recruit Canadians with access to government information through social media and online job platforms.
Canada's data increasingly resides in the hands of foreign governments and the corporations in their jurisdictions.
And it becomes inevitable as
Former CSIS Director Ward Elcock says there is always a balance between economic and security interests when it comes to international partnerships.
One worries only if trade becomes so important and so dominant that you start to pay less attention to the aggressive activities.
But he warns hostile actors are becoming bolder.
Activities have been far more aggressive in the last 6-7 years than they were at an earlier time.
To help counter growing threats, CSIS regularly shares intelligence with allies, including the United States, Donna. And CSIS says that relationship remains strong in spite of changes in the U.S. administration, but other nations, including the UK, have reportedly paused some intelligence sharing with the states under U.S. President Donald Trump.
All right, Jillian Piper in Ottawa, thank you. The pressure is mounting on the White House and on Congress after yesterday's release of documents and emails from the estate of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. U.S. President Donald Trump is mentioned in emails written by Epstein, but the White House dismisses it all as another Democrat and mainstream media hoax fueled by fake outrage. The outrage, though, in some circles is real, including among some Republicans, as Jackson Prosco reports.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Rarely one to shy from the press.
Mr. President, can you respond to these Epstein emails that were released today?
President Donald Trump refused to answer any questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, ushering reporters out of the Oval Office just hours after a document dump from Epstein's estate that included emails showing the convicted sex offender repeatedly mentioned Trump. The president faces even more pressure from Congress, where lawmakers, including several Republicans, forced a vote that would order the release of the full Epstein files. The vote will happen next week and will see lawmakers go on record supporting or opposing the release. It could ultimately wind up on Trump's desk for signature or veto.
They actually fear the Epstein files. Of course, there could be two motives. One would be it's simply a terrible negative story about Trump under any conditions. But the other reason, I think, is at least as persuasive, which is there's damning information in there about Trump.
Up until the last minute, Trump pressured Republicans not to support the document release, reportedly bringing one congresswoman to the White House Situation Room for a meeting with top Justice Department officials.
I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room.
It's politically tenuous for Trump, who campaigned on making the Epstein files public and now says they don't exist.
This is a Democrat hoax that never ends.
But the questions aren't going away. The White House continues to claim the Epstein files either clear Trump or show no wrongdoing. Yet they're also going to great lengths to oppose their release. Donna?
Jackson Prosco in Washington. Thanks, Jackson. The U.S. federal government began reopening today after the longest shutdown in American history. More than 600,000 furloughed federal employees went back to work this morning. Last night, President Trump signed a short-term funding package to end the shutdown that dragged on for 43 days. Paychecks are now resuming, along with critical food assistance programs, and airlines are optimistic they can return to normal flight schedules within a few days. New digital billboards near Toronto's Union Station bus terminal have taken people by surprise and raised privacy concerns. At first glance, they look like normal billboards, but within them is facial detection technology used to tailor the ads to people walking by. Kevin Gallagher reports on the Toronto billboards keeping an eye on the daily commute.
As people walk past these video ads near Toronto's Union Station, few know the ads are looking back.
Not a fan. I mean, I feel like we all have a right in public space to have our privacy not infringed upon.
Just above each billboard is a small camera that can estimate a person's age, sex, or even how long they've been looking.
Unless somebody has malicious intent, it's not bad, but I feel like, there's always somebody with malicious intent that can somehow get access to that.
It's called Anonymous Video Analytics, and it's designed to optimize the types of ads getting played depending on the person walking past.
During these busy times, if screens can do this kind of thing, and for our benefit, that's great.
This small disclaimer beside the billboard from the owner, Cineplex Digital Media, contains the fine print. In a statement, CDM says there is no personal identification, no pictures stored, and no tracking or profiling of individuals.
I'm fine with that because that's where technology is going, that's where AI is going.
5 years ago, Canada's Privacy Commissioner found Cadillac Fairview broke the law for using facial recognition cameras to collect biometric data on nearly 5 million unsuspecting shoppers. According to CDM, its facial detection cameras are different. They don't catalog faces or store identifying data. Instead, they say the faces are forgotten in milliseconds, and only a record of how many people walked by with an anonymized demographic breakdown is kept.
I don't particularly like it
but I think there's no way back anymore.
CDM says it sought advice from Canada's Privacy Commissioner to ensure its technology follows all laws and regulations. Though in a statement, the Office of Ontario's Privacy Commissioner says it's examining this matter as a potential investigation. Kevin Gallagher, Global News, Toronto.
The BBC apologizes to the U.S. president, coming up what the broadcaster says and what it won't be doing. Ukraine says it has launched an audit of all state-owned companies after a vast corruption scandal was uncovered. An investigation by Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau revealed a $100 million kickback scheme tied to the state's nuclear power company. 8 people face charges of bribery and abuse of office, and 2 government ministers have resigned. Today, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky imposed sanctions on 2 businessmen linked to the probe, including a former business partner of his. The European Union has warned Ukraine to keep cracking down on corruption because it will hurt Ukraine's ability to attract financial aid for its war with Russia. The BBC has apologized to the U.S. president over a misleading edit in a documentary aired last year. It made it appear that President Trump had directly called for violence right before the 2021 January 6 Capitol siege. In a statement, the British broadcaster says it will not rebroadcast the documentary and that it regrets the manner in which the video clip was edited, but it says it strongly disagrees there is a basis for a defamation suit. Trump's legal team has threatened to sue the BBC for $1 billion. Earlier this week, the Director General and new CEO of BBC both resigned. Ahead, a repatriation decades in the making, one family's journey to bring a loved one home from a residential school. More than 80 years after a young girl died at a residential school in the Northwest Territories, her remains have finally been brought to her hometown. Alma Bolio's grave is one of at least 50 found near the school. And as Melissa Ridgen explains, her sister spent years working to bring her home.
Alma Bolio was 5 years old when she died at the St. Joseph Residential School in Fort Resolution, Northwest Territories in 1944. Her mother only found out when Alma didn't come home for a school break.
If I can remember correctly, it seemed to me she said that some of the kids that told her parents, they did not tell her. They just buried her like that. I remember my mom crying for, seemed like forever.
Delphine told her mom one day she would bring her sister home. That day finally happened on October 20th, after 80 years.
I was very happy that I was able to get my little sister's remains back so that I could bury her remains by my mom's grave. I also felt sad, but I think I was more happy about being able to get her remains back home where she should have been at the first place.
It took 3 years working with First Nations leaders, researchers, and the territorial government. Sarah Bollier, no relation to Delphine and Alma, is one of the team who made it happen.
I hope it helps Canadians to see that we are doing what we can, and these investigations are working, and ground-penetrating radar is working.
National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation records show 67 children died at the school, which operated from 1903 to 1957. Researchers expect to exhume 5 other graves from Fort Resolution to return children's remains to their families. A slow process dozens of communities and families elsewhere in Canada are working through.
We just need people to be patient and allow us to do this work and to do it in a safe way and a way that protects community and supports them as the work is being done.
Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
Next, remembering the worst terror attacks in France's modern history and the threat that still remains. Church bells rang out across Paris today, including at the beloved Notre Dame Cathedral, to remember the lives lost 10 years ago today. A decade ago, that night of coordinated attacks in Paris, including a massacre at the Bataclan, shocked the world. 130 people were killed. It changed France forever. And though the perpetrators linked to the so-called Islamic State were killed or caught, the threat has not gone away. Mike Armstrong reports.
It is a pain, the French president says, that is still present.
Emmanuel Macron laid a wreath at each of the 6 sites attacked 10 years ago. The first victim on that day was a bus driver outside a soccer stadium killed by a suicide bomber. Manuel Diaz's daughter says she has missed him every morning and every night since.
L'absence est immense.
The absence is immense, she says. The shock is still raw. It was 9:20 on a Friday night when the coordinated attacks started. There were 3 explosions, followed by confusion at the soccer stadium. And then within minutes, attacks by gunmen at 4 cafes and the Bataclan nightclub. More than 400 people were injured, 130 were killed. A new memorial garden in Paris opened officially on the anniversary. It has a section dedicated to each of the sites that were hit and the names of each victim. That includes survivor Sébastien Lascoux's friend, Christophe Lelouch.
En les nommant, on les fait vivre.
He says it's important to read the names to keep their memories alive. The attacks were carried out by jihadists with the so-called Islamic State. 9 attackers were killed. 23 suspected accomplices were arrested in the days that followed. A 10th attacker escaped and was on the run for months. He was eventually caught in Belgium and is serving a life sentence. But the trauma did change the country. Soldiers on the streets are now a common sight. The security expert says people have gotten used to it and accept that the threat is constant and permanent. In fact, as the country remembers the anniversary, French authorities confirmed this week they're investigating the ex-girlfriend of the attacker now in jail, suspected herself of being part of another jihadist plot. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Your Canada is going global again. We have photos of Canadian pride that we've received from all over the world. Tonight, the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, the Coral Princess cruise ship in Hawaii, and the Ground Zero Monument in Mocapa, Brazil. Thanks for watching. Jeff Semple will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.